Hello, all, and welcome. We are back talking about innovations in competency mapped corporate training. In our last episode, we focused on scaling and how innovative platforms are helping in the K 12, higher ed, and corporate sectors. Today, once again, we have two guests Dr. Guido Minaya, CEO and Chief Learning Officer of Minaya Learning Global Solutions, and again, joining us via Zoom, the founder of Massive U, Angelo Biasi. They'll touch on AI and the importance of metrics with regards to scaling. Stay tuned to learn more.
Thank you, Dario. It is great to be back on the show with you and Angelo. Hello, Angelo.
Hello, Guido. Hi, Dario. Nice to be on here, and I appreciate the invitation.
We are continuing part 2 of our conversation on innovations that help scale skill development through competency map models. Your Solvably platform, right, has also recently been enhanced to support systemic AI literacy among all lifelong learners via your AI Center of Excellence. Why are you focusing on this topic? Very exciting, but why are you focusing on this topic now, and what might we expect in the future?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Guido. And AI is one of those technology disruptors that is not going to go away. If anything, it's going to continue to advance, provide new opportunities, or threats, depending on how you see it. I spoke to a leader of a big company a few weeks ago, and he said to his employees, if you're not using AI to 3x your output, well, then perhaps we're overpaying you by 3x. And you let that sink in for a couple minutes, and the threat of displacement starts to really set in if you're a customer service worker or a salesperson, marketing professional, what have you. Um, and I go back to a recent quote from Gartner, where they say, in many ways, everyday AI is the future of workforce productivity. And they go on further to say for higher education institutions, that creates a responsibility to equip students with the skills needed to thrive in the workplace, where AI will play a pivotal role. So it kind of interesting, just in that statement, everyday AI is the future of workforce productivity. If we unpack that for a moment, it's once again, it's how do you see that? Is that an opportunity or a threat? I've got I'm the father of twin 15-year-olds. Of course, I'm concerned about their future. Even something as secure as computer science a few years ago is now at risk because AI can do a lot of that coding, and who knows where that's going to go in the next 1, 2, or 5 years. But then in that Gartner quote, they go one step further, saying that it's the responsibility of higher education institutions to better prepare these students and equip them with the tools. So we've taken that in Solvably, and we're launching an AI Center of Excellence very similarly to take this format of teaching and learning, this new format of teaching and learning, collaborative creative problem solving, and saying, hey, how would you take this problem? Let's say it's a math problem in K-12 or a leadership problem inside of the corporate marketplace. How would you apply AI to solve for this problem? And then going through that same design thinking process, working with the team, coming up with a deliverable. We think that that's a huge opportunity to systemically provide AI literacy for companies, institutions, students who I can almost guarantee you, Guido, in the next, if it's not happening already, in the next 6 months, 1 to 5 years, that next job interview that anyone goes on, that employer is going to say, hey, how are you using AI to improve your productivity, your efficiency in the job that you're applying for? And if those students, if those candidates can't have a good answer and say, well, hey, here's a project that I worked on in the Solvably platform as one example, working in a team. Here's what we did. Here's, I had to persuade my team. We worked together. Here's an application for that I can apply to this job it'll benefit the company, and here are the KPIs that are attached to that. That candidate would have such a greater advantage than the 10 other candidates that follow him or her who don't have that. And more specifically, for that employer that has a vision of, similar to what I said earlier, if you're not 3xing your output using AI, or overpaying you by 3x, that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, hey, we're going to get as much of a competitive advantage with this AI thing as much as possible. How can we systemically train everyone from mailroom to the boardroom such that they not only understand the benefits of AI, but are working on applications within their specific job role and how that will benefit the company? And I think those are the companies, those forward thinking companies like Salesforce, who's taking an active lead role in training all of their entire organization in AI, have a huge advantage, going forward. And that is really the vision. How can we take that and really help systemically empower students and professionals to the benefits of AI? See it as an opportunity. As soon as you unlock that and they see the capabilities and how they can apply that to their own role, the advantages will pay tremendous amounts of dividends, not only for students, but also professionals and employers.
Well, I look forward to learning more about how solvably, when it's ready, and when you release it out into the marketplace, that's going to be exciting to see. If we take an example, right? So here in the county that we're in Lee County, just a few weeks ago, we had 25,000 job openings in multiple industries, whether that was in hospitality, manufacturing, healthcare, K-12 education, construction, and 8,000 people looking for jobs, right? So you see this talent shortage that not only covers, larger employers, but we have 27,000 business establishments and another 24,000 home-based businesses, right? So that's just one county. So when you look at talent shortages in many industries and communities, how do we connect the dots with innovative technology solutions like you've seen, and how do these platforms, how can they help deliver on solutions to address this?
Yeah, and that's a challenge that it has been going on for years. So I see it pretty clearly in a few different components. If we were to unpack it even further, well, for one thing, where are the pools of people coming from? As you mentioned, you have 25,000 openings, 8,000 people. So we have a difference of what, 17,000 people looking, candidates, qualified candidates. Where are they going to come from? And that's where I mentioned earlier, some interesting platforms and opportunities with global talent pools, but then reaching, even further, deep. I said earlier in our conversation, a lot of companies are looking at that 16-year-old plus, market, going even deeper. And I would suggest even further of programs inside of K-12 within the community that really inspire. They're doing some great things in El Cajon, California, where I know the superintendent very well. And over the past 10 years, they've really transformed that community with the K-12 students, of inspiring and informing them of the job opportunities within that community. And that has led to great success. So it's where those pools come from. That's number one. Number two, it's how do we qualify those candidates that are looking or that are potentially a part of that new pool. And that's where innovative platforms and solutions like Solvably, like Skillfully, like some of those tools that I already mentioned, but also some of the alternative pathways to employability. The learn to earn, the boot camps, and then it's also, Guido, soft skill development. I see as a real opportunity. So we've got that 8,000. Okay, those are alternative pools, but then we also have a workforce that may be aging out or looking for a change. And how do we qualify that group for that 17,000 displacement or variation of variants of jobs? Well, A lot of that is soft skill development, in my opinion, transferable skills, transportable skills, power skills, whatever you might want to call them, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, communication. If we had an opportunity, and that's another thing that Solvably does really well, if we had an opportunity to track and develop those soft skills, we can now move those candidates, those employees around the opportunity pool, if you will, a lot more easily. And then the last thing that I would say is really how do we shorten the cycle? How do we best train and qualify those candidates? So it's finding the pools. Where are the pools? How do we move candidates around from other areas? How do we then um, how do we qualify them? And then lastly, how do we shorten that cycle? Whether that's micro credentialing, badging, it's through experiential learning, like what we're doing with Solvably, with collaborative, creative problem solving. But it's those three areas that if we really, and it's not a huge challenge, but nonetheless, attention needs to be given, in my opinion, to each one of those three components to really solve for that particular challenge.
It sounds like that challenge we can create unsolvably for community leaders to take.
Yeah.
And when you think of these types of solutions and tracking, measuring, and I've got some good context here, but what how would you describe the kind of analytics that are available with these types of platforms that would give CEOs and those investing in this within a community more confidence that this could really help transform the problem into a long-term sustainable solution?
Yeah, and that's so important. The measurable outcomes. What is it that's going to prove, Guido, that this candidate is qualified, has skills first, competency based background that qualifies them to perform at high output for this particular job role? Well, as things are moving more towards a skills first recruiting, competency based economy, if you will, um, you don't really get that on a resume. You don't get that in a lot of cases in interviews. And there are a lot of different ways to game the system. So it still leaves us with, well, how do you do that? And I've clearly seen that for years now through experiential learning. Okay, it's one thing to receive the content. We're so conditioned to direct instruction. I sit in the seat, there's a talking head or a video, gives me the content, I absorb the content, I take the assessment, I check the box. We saw a lot of that go on with diversity, equity, and inclusion, where companies had to be DEI compliant. So what did they do? They served up a lot of videos and assessments, check the box. Were those companies really practicing unconscious bias, diversity, equity, inclusion in their practice, in their day to day? Not necessarily. That didn't really prove that they did that. So, like I said, I see everything very clearly through experiential learning, working in a team, solving a problem, creating a project, and at the end of the day, having a deliverable that, an evidence-based deliverable that they can say, okay, here's what all the work that we did. Here's our actionable deliverable that can now be put into place that will benefit the company for these particular KPIs. So experiential learning that leads to actionable deliverables, we call that authentic assessment. And then at the end of the day, another component is really these 360 evaluations. So, as a coach, as a business executive coach, that's a great way to continuously monitor longitudinal efficacy, but it's hardly scalable. And that's one thing that insolvably we have at the very end of the process. You not only evaluate your own performance, but you evaluate your peers' performance based on the experience that you just went through, an escape room like experience across the four C's, across transferable skills. And with that, you really get a very detailed radar chart of your soft skills. Now you have your deliverable that is relative to that particular topic. Maybe you've consumed some content to learn about that. And at the end of the day, that outcome, that measurement of I've consumed the content, I've got the knowledge and skills, I've applied my learning, with the actionable deliverable and the experience that I just went through working with the team, and I've got my soft skills 360 evaluation of myself and working with the team and how they saw me and these skills and what I might need to improve upon going forward. And I think that is a really powerful portfolio, e-transcript, if you will, to saying, yeah, I'm the most qualified candidate for this particular role, and I can prove it. Here not only do I have the check marks of watching the video, passing the assessment, here's a deliverable and the engagement that I worked on with the team, and here's how they evaluated, my skills that are necessary for this particular role. I think the more we start seeing things through that lens rather than, like I said earlier, with DEI or safety, I get so crazy when I see these safety and compliance programs where they're serving up videos and drill and kill assessments. You know, if anything, those employees are less safe because they now have a check mark next to their name, yet they haven't retained an ounce of that content. And I can almost guarantee you, Guido, that if you thought back of some of the courses that you've taken and how much of that do you recall versus the last time that you went to an escape room, and how much of that experience do you remember in comparison? My guess is you'd probably say the escape room, and what you went through, and in greater detail than recalling some of the content that you might have learned in your last professional development course or a video and an assessment that you may have taken.
Great points, Angela. And thank you for sharing that on the analytics and why it's so much more effective in an experiential kind of solution. And we will definitely invite you back. Thank you for sharing your extensive expertise with us. I learned a great deal today, so I'm sure our listeners will enjoy this as well. And thank you so much for your time today, Angelo.
Oh, thank you, Guido, and thank you, Dario. It's been a real pleasure spending this last 30 minutes or so with you, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing as well.
Dario, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Biasi and Dr. Minaya, for a great conversation on this topic. I'm sure our listeners will enjoy this episode. In our next episode, we'll look at a couple of case studies with respect to cloud-based competency assessment platforms. Until next time.